I just found the footage you need to fix your brain. Specifically a show where the main character is a total menace who gets resurrected as a spirit detective. These 10 hand-drawn 90s masterpieces are absolute chaos, and you need to watch them immediately. If you want to know what peak, unfiltered 1990s hand-drawn violence looks like, we have to start with Ninja Scroll. This isn't your typical clean, modern shonen. This 1993 movie is a dark fantasy masterpiece that basically defined the gritty, high-stakes aesthetic of the decade. We follow a wandering mercenary named Jubei, who gets blackmailed into fighting the 8 devils of Kaimon. And let me tell you, these guys aren't regular ninjas. We're talking about freakish, supernatural villains with powers like turning their skin to solid stone or hiding in shadows. The legendary studio Madhouse went absolutely wild on the action here. Directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, the swordplay has this incredible physical weight to it, with gorgeous, high-contrast cell animation where every drop of rain and splash of blood pops off the screen. It's so stylistically influential that even the Wachowskis cited it as a major inspiration for The Matrix. If you want a movie that's pure, raw kinetic energy, phenomenal animation, and incredibly creative fights, you need to check this classic out. Coming in at number 9, we're talking about the absolute peak of cyberpunk animation, the 1995 masterpiece, Ghost in the Shell. Before The Matrix even existed, this was the movie that literally gave the Wachowskis their entire blueprint. We follow Major Motoko Kusanagi, a cyborg super soldier leading an elite task force against a mysterious hacker who can hijack people's minds. The vibe here is unmatched. It's got this incredible rain-soaked, neon-drenched atmosphere that just drips off the screen, paired with some of the most satisfyingly heavy, tactical gunfights you'll ever see in anime. The production team actually went to Guam to record real live-fire weaponry just to get the audio soundscapes right. But what's really wild is how haunting the film feels. The director actually ordered the animators to never let Motoko blink, giving her this uncanny, living doll stare that perfectly captures her existential dread. It's a gorgeous, moody, high-concept ride that respects your intelligence while delivering some of the most jaw-dropping, hand-drawn animation of the decade. If you want action that stays with you long after the credits roll, you need to experience this masterpiece immediately. Sliding into number 8, we have to talk about the absolute titan that is Neon Genesis Evangelion. On paper, you might think you're just getting another giant robot show where humanity fights off massive monsters called angels. But Studio Gainax didn't just make a cool mecha series. They built a psychological roller coaster that completely rewrote the rules of anime. You follow Shinji, a 14-year-old who's dragged by his terrible father to pilot this terrifying biomechanical beast called Unit 01. Instead of being some brave, fearless hero, Shinji is just an anxious, traumatized kid who is literally screaming in fear. The action is incredible and brutal, but the real draw is the creeping existential dread and how raw the characters feel. Director Hideaki Anno poured his own real-life struggles with depression straight into this show, and you can feel that heavy emotional weight in every frame. It starts as a high-stakes sci-fi battle, but quickly spirals into this beautiful, messy, and deeply personal exploration of trauma and connection. It's legendary for a reason, and you've got to experience it yourself to understand why it still dominates anime conversations decades later. Sliding into our number 7 spot, we have to talk about the absolute blueprint of cool, Cowboy Bebop. If you haven't seen this masterpiece yet, I'm actually jealous that you get to experience it for the first time. The setup is simple. You've got a ragtag crew of bounty hunters cruising through space on a rusty ship, just trying to make enough cash to buy some decent beef and bell peppers. But what makes this show a legend isn't just the space bounty of the week formula. It's the vibe. We're talking gorgeous, fluid hand-drawn animation, martial arts inspired by Bruce Lee, and a legendary jazz soundtrack by Yoko Kanno that literally dictates the rhythm of the entire show. Fun fact, the studio originally wanted a cheap show to sell spaceship toys, but the director, Shinichiro Watanabe, basically ignored them and made a cinematic, neo-noir masterpiece instead. Spike Spiegel is the ultimate effortless protagonist, but underneath all that swagger, every single character is haunted by a past they can't run away from. It's stylish, it's melancholic, and it's got an emotional punch that'll stay with you forever. Trust me, you're gonna carry that weight. Sliding into our number 6 spot is a masterpiece that defined 98 sci-fi, the legendary space western Trigun. We're talking about Vash the Stampede, a guy with a $60 billion double-dollar bounty on his head who's feared as a literal walking natural disaster. But here's the genius twist that makes this show so unforgettable. Vash is actually a massive, goofy pacifist who'd rather eat donuts than pull a trigger. In fact, the writers built so much suspense around his skills that he doesn't even fire a single bullet until 5 episodes in. Madhouse absolutely cooked with the animation here, balancing hilarious slapstick comedy with some of the most desperate high-stakes gunfights you'll ever see. It's not about how many guys Vash can shoot, it's about the insane lengths he'll go to save everyone, even the villains, without taking a single life. The way his tragic past slowly unravels while bounty hunters tear up every town he visits is just brilliant storytelling. If you want a classic that's got supreme style, a killer desert punk aesthetic, and a protagonist you can't help but root for, this is it. Landing right at number 5, we've got to talk about the absolute gold standard of dark fantasy, the 1997 masterpiece, Berserk. Look, if you only know this franchise from the modern CGI adaptations, I need you to wipe those from your memory right now, because this original adaptation of Kentaro Miura's legendary manga is a masterpiece of hand-drawn, atmospheric dread. We're following Guts, a mercenary with a giant sword, who gets dragged into the Band of the Hawk by their charismatic leader Griffith. What starts as a gritty medieval war story slowly spirals into this deeply psychological Shakespearean tragedy. It's got this raw, heavy, blood-soaked combat that feels incredibly grounded, but the real secret weapon here is the soundtrack by Susumu Hirasawa. His experimental, ethereal music gives the whole show this haunting, dreamlike vibe that makes the impending doom feel so much heavier. Yes, it ends on one of the most infamous cliffhangers in anime history, but the journey there's honestly unparalleled. It's beautiful, tragic, and absolutely brutal. At number 4, we have to talk about the absolute blueprint of cyberpunk cinema, Akira. I know, it technically dropped in '88, but its DNA completely ruled the 90s action scene, and honestly, nothing has ever matched this level of pure, hand-drawn insanity. We're talking about Neo Tokyo, a neon-drenched dystopian powder keg where biker gangs rule the highways. When a young punk named Tetsuo gets caught up in a shady government experiment, he gains these terrifying, godlike psychic powers that start tearing his mind and the entire city apart. It's up to his best friend and gang leader, Kaneda, to stop him before the whole world burns. The sheer scale here is mind-blowing. They hand-drew over 160,000 frames of animation, mostly on ones, meaning 24 frames per second of fluid, bone-crushing action. And they actually recorded the voices before animating, which is why the character expressions feel so hauntingly real. When you watch that legendary motorcycle slide, or see a skyscraper literally crumble into dust, you can feel the physical weight of the destruction. It's violent, gorgeous, and still the absolute gold standard for visceral action. We've finally made it to number 3 on our list, and we're diving straight into the gothic, blood-soaked peak of classic dark fantasy with Vampire Hunter D. Picture this, it's the year 12,090 AD, and the world is a decaying, beautiful wasteland where sci-fi cybertech meets medieval dread, all ruled by cruel vampire overlords. Enter D, a silently gorgeous Dampier half-human, half-vampire, who hunts his own kind with a massive sword and a highly sarcastic, sentient face living in his left hand. Yes, a talking parasite hand, and their banter is absolutely top tier. While the 1985 original film is a stone-cold classic that paved the way for anime in the West, the sequel, Bloodlust, is where they truly perfected the formula. It's easily one of the most stunning things Madhouse has ever animated, making the action feel incredibly fluid and heavy. The art style feels like legendary artist Yoshitaka Amano's gothic paintings literally came to life right in front of you. Every single frame is dripping with moody atmosphere, terrifying monsters, and lightning-fast swordplay that'll leave you breathless. If you want a dark fantasy action ride that's pure, unfiltered atmosphere, this is your holy grail. At number 2, we're sliding into the absolute darkest, most neon-soaked corner of retro anime with the legendary movie Wicked City. If you want to know where the entire aesthetic of late 80s and 90s dark cyber horror came from, this is the blueprint. Directed by the absolute master of action, Yoshiaki Kawajiri, this film is a gorgeous, disturbing, hard-boiled detective story wrapped in a supernatural nightmare. The setup is wild. Our world secretly coexists with a demon dimension, and there's a peace treaty keeping us safe that's about to expire. To stop radical factions from ruining the deal, a human secret agent and a badass female demon protector have to partner up. The animation here is ridiculously fluid. We are talking jaw-dropping, gymnastic action sequences, and some of the most grotesque, melting body horror ever put to sell. It's gritty, it's unapologetically mature, and it has that heavy, oppressive atmosphere that modern digital shows just can't replicate. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but if you want raw, unfiltered, beautifully animated chaos that pushes every possible limit, you've got to experience this ride. And finally, standing at the absolute peak of 90s action, we have the undisputed king, YuYu Hakusho. This isn't just a classic, it's the actual blueprint for modern battle shonen. You've got Yusuke, this absolute menace of a teenage delinquent who dies in the first episode saving a kid, only to get resurrected as a spirit detective. But forget the detective stuff. Where this show truly ascends to god tier status is when it pivots into the legendary Dark Tournament arc. Seriously, no anime has ever topped the tension, the sheer brutality, and the character growth of this arc. You're watching 4 total misfits, Yusuke, Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei, who honestly kind of tolerate each other at best, throwing down against terrifying demons where the stakes feel genuinely life or death. Togashi's genius writing shines here because every fight isn't just about who punches harder, it's a mental chess match. Plus, the English dub is legendary for its hilarious, snarky attitude. If you want 90s grit, iconic style, and fights that'll have you screaming at your screen, this is the ultimate masterpiece. And that's my definitive lineup for the best of 90s action. If you dug this, do me a favor and hit that sub button. I'm curious though, do you actually agree that the Dark Tournament in Yu Yu Hakusho beats every other arc on this list? Or is there a different battle saga that hits harder? Here's a couple more videos you can jump into right now. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.